are going to be telling you what is happening inside Nintendo right now as they prep to launch Switch 2.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very focused on an announcement and when that might happen.
Right.
But there's a lot of work that leads to that point of getting ready. So we want to kind of open everybody's eyes a little bit about all of the very hard work that happens to get to that point. Because that's not where things begin if you are working at Nintendo.
If you're working at Nintendo, there's so much work to do to get to a point where it becomes public. We're going to take you inside all the different departments, tell you what each department is responsible for. We obviously lived through this. We launched several Nintendo hardware systems, including Switch, when we worked at the company. So yeah, we'll reflect a little bit on all that hard work and maybe be a little glad that we don't have to do it again. Because
I am glad.
A lot of work. Yeah. Now we can just enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Also, very exciting.
Oh.
This is our 100th
Wow! You brought the cake, right? The big cake with the 100 on it? Where's that?
Yes, I have the cake.
You don't have it.
I have the cake.
Have it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's exciting though. I can't believe it. It's so crazy that we made it so far already. It didn't feel like it. Felt like it.
No, we had this one circled on our calendar for a while because we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And we talked through like all sorts of things we could do for this, like big and small. And I think ultimately we opted for something that was maybe a bit more subdued than some of the other options of what we could do because I think we thought about it. It's like, yeah, this is a great milestone. This is special, but it's not like the end goal for us.
No. Yeah.
Like, we are going to continue the podcast. We hope to get to 2, 3, like more, hundreds more.
1 million episodes.
So we are going to celebrate this by doing kind of a trip down, like, this is like a This Is Your Life. But this is your podcast. It's like we each have the 10 moments that got us to this point.
Right.
That we are both going to share.
Yeah, and we might have something that we don't know what each other's 10 moments are.
I'm sure that some will be different. I'm sure some will be the same. So it'll be interesting to see.
But it's very interesting because it is like one of those things where everything kind of builds upon itself. Like if one of these things on my list, I feel like if one of those things didn't happen, it didn't go exactly that way.
1,000 years ago, a butterfly flapped its wings. and it led to us today having this 100th podcast.
Primordial ooze,
exactly.
We crawled out to do a podcast. But yeah, if like any one of those things, it's so weird to think about it. It's like the butterfly effect, totally. If any one of those things did not happen in that particular way, it would have all fallen apart.
It's so true.
It would have fallen apart. So yeah, we're going to talk about that, and it's going to be a fun episode. So we hope that you guys will hang out with us and celebrate 100 episodes with us today.
Yes, please.
Obviously, we have to thank our wonderful Patreon family for getting us to 100 episodes. Obviously, we could not have done any of this. We can't believe that we have such a wonderful Patreon community behind us to make 100 episodes and more possible. And we love you guys so much. Thank you for all the support. And if you'd like to join us to keep this podcast going up to 200 episodes, then we're at patreon.com/Kit and Krysta.
We're truly Patreon-led to the extent that we recently let our Patreon subscribers do a very detailed survey on how they thought things were going in Kit and Krysta land. Please give us your honest, unfiltered feedback. And we have been going through all of that information. This is fascinating to see.
Yeah.
And we are going to be using that to inform some changes that we're going to be making for 2024, which you'll all be hearing about soon. But it is truly the inner circle for us.
It is, absolutely. And we do everything for this wonderful community. That's really the whole point of this 100 episodes and more is like, we want to continue to build this community, continue to have this awesome friendship with all of you guys, and we especially cherish that with our wonderful Patreon family. So, yes, please join us. It's great.
And joining that starts for the low, low price of free. So please consider.
Yeah, it's very easy to join. We have some exciting news right off the bat here, which is... Listen.
Do I know what you're going to say right now? I'm not sure I do now. You've thrown me off.
Well, you better stop interrupting me and let me finish my thought here.
What are you going to say? This actually is the last episode.
And mic drop, I'm out. No, just kidding. We are so lucky because wonderful friends at Ubisoft sent over some early codes for Prince of Persia. And we've been playing. We're going to have some impressions. That's coming out soonish. And we'll do a whole thing on that, but we're very excited to be playing this game early.
Yes. The
awesome.
embargo for that basically lifted at the same time that we always release the podcast. And that's the one thing we do that is like pretty set in stone. Like we don't change the time when the podcast comes out because we know a lot of people look forward to it. So we are not going to be talking about it in this podcast. We will have a separate video.
That's right.
Taking you deep into what we think and showing it off. So that will be out shortly after this podcast comes out. So you can look forward to that. But yeah, it's been great to play that early.
Right.
And thanks again, Ubisoft, for sending those over.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are also prepping for our next Super Kit and Krysta 64 video. We did a video kind of similar to this on the NSO, like Nintendo Switch NSO.
We did this video a long time ago.
It feels like a long time ago.
But I think it was one of our more creative ideas.
Yeah,
which was,
I like this one.
We called it a scavenger hunt.
Right.
But it was finding things in games rather than in real life.
Right.
So last time we did it with Nintendo 64 games. This time we're doing it with my physical NES game collection, which I'm going to be bringing in.
That's the twist, because we do have a growing collection of like NES, SNES NES games. We've been doing a lot of like retro game hunting around. Last year we went to some cool like retro shops. We went to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. So now we have this like nice collection.
Right.
So it'd be fun to like grab bag out of the all the physical games.
So I'll give you an example of one clue that I've been making my list that I thought about, but I'm not going to include for you. I'll give that to the good people as a hint.
Okay.
The woman in pink gives this secret agent his clues. Do you have any idea what that game could be? Of course not. It's too hard. The game is Golgo 13.
Okay, I don't know.
Which is a very obscure game based on a very cool Japanese property.
Okay, there you go.
About a sniper. That's a game that if it came out today would be a hard M. There's some crazy stuff that happens in that game.
Really?
It gets saucy in this NES game.
Really? For the children?
Yes.
When you were playing it as an 8-year-old youth? You were playing saucy games?
It's nuts. But that's the kind of hint. And then you have to go through these, like, well, what are the games that we have here? What could it be? You're going to have physically put the thing in, chunk it in.
You also have to, like, if you're just totally stumped, you can give the other person, like, a little bit more.
Right.
Like, you can say, like, okay, this is from this franchise or whatever. Sure. I mean, you can like, you know, give them a little bit more clues.
Right. But I think it's going to be more fun instead of doing it on NSO, having the physical games
I think it's gonna be
there.
So fun.
You do not blow into these cartridges. Now we know that's a bad thing to do. Do not do that. These are all, I've cleaned all of these. They should be good.
No, these should be great. Yeah, these are all like very nice, like nice condition. We've bought them at really reputable places.
Some of these are my original cartridges too.
Some of these are from your childhood. But yes, it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really cool, and I can't wait to, like, fail miserably, but it'll be fun.
Maybe I'll do all the cartridging now that I think about it more. Instead of
you don't trust me?
I broke it.
Jamming, the pins are all, like, messed up.
It snapped. Oh.
I've never. I'm so careful.
I don't know.
I'm so delicate. I'm such a delicate young lady. Such a princess.
Indeed.
With such delicate hands to put your cartridge in so gently.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that's coming soon. The good folks on Patreon will be getting that first. But as they say, please look forward to it.
Oh, please.
Please.
Please look forward to it.
So we got these two big segments right off the gate. What's Nintendo doing? And then our 100th episode celebration. But first, as always, we got to shout out our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Factor.
Thank you, Factor.
Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery store's prep work and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door.
It is resolution season.
And you told me you're having a hard time with yours.
I'm already having a hard time.
You said it was still the holidays. I have some news for you. Those are over.
I know. You were like, how have you been eating? I'm like, it's still the holidays. I'm still eating like 4 cookies a day.
I'm looking forward to President's Day.
But if you are trying to get healthy for the new year, Factor is such a great and easy way to do it. They have so many different options. They have like keto options if you want to do that, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, so much more. And the best part is that it's so easy. You just heat it up 2 minutes in the microwave and you're ready to go.
Here's the thing that I like about this. So do you ever make like a healthy dinner and then you eat that and you're like, I want something a little bit more. And then you go like get a bag of chips or something.
Or
you're
you
just
like mac and cheese.
Right. But with this, it's like, this is what you have. The meal is what you have.
I know.
So it's not like, oh, I have all this other stuff or there's leftover and I have another portion of this. It's like, no, this is the meal.
Portion control.
That is what is good about this. I'm definitely I like everybody, I overindulged over the holidays. I'm ready.
Time to detox.
I'm time to get serious about this, and this is a great way to do it.
Yeah. Also, you know, the other thing that's really, really tough as people are trying to get back into the new year is like you're busy. You're trying to
Back to work.
Back to work.
Right.
So you don't want to, you know, do a lot of takeout. It's also very expensive. Factor is so much more affordable as well, and it's so easy. So we are big fans.
Yes, 35 weekly meals to choose from, over 55 weekly add-ons. It's perfect. So head to factormeals.com/KitandKrysta50 and use code KitandKrysta50 to get 50% off. That's code KitandKrysta50 at factormeals.com/KitandKrysta50 to get 50% off.
And we'll put the link right over here and also in the description below.
Yes. All right. More Switch 2. People seemed interested in the discussion of the Switch 2. It's on people's minds.
Big discussion. Yes.
You told me last week you had a moment of anxiety. You're like, oh my gosh, we did this big predictions episode. What if it doesn't even come out this year?
And you laughed
Where's
in my face.
Where's the conviction?
You laughed in my face. I always do this. Even when I was like working at Nintendo, I was like, something's gonna happen. We're not launching this thing. Even though I knew it was coming out because I was like working on it. I don't know what my problem is, but I'm over it now. Anyways, but we were talking about it at the top. You know, it's really interesting to look at this from the public side, where you sort of start like kick off the hardware or whatever with the announcement.
Right.
Like the official announcement.
Right. For if you are just Joe consumer, that's when it begins.
That's when it begins for you, right? Obviously, there's like lots of rumors and speculations leading up to it that you can like go and circle around, but it doesn't really officially start until the official announcement.
It is the proverbial iceberg, though, where the stuff that's out of the water is what you see, and then there's everything else that the company has been doing to get ready, which is, I mean, literally years. When it comes to new hardware of getting stuff ready and getting software ready and getting partners ready, there's just like an infinite amount of work to do. So I think it's fun to look at this and get a look at the other side of what it is.
Exactly.
Before we get into this, I want to say it's pretty amazing that there have not been substantial leaks for this yet.
Pretty good, yeah.
You know, there was the stuff from Gamescom about how the partners were getting briefed. I'm sure partners have, and that's when the danger zone happens.
Exactly.
Is when it gets out of the Nintendo buildings.
Right.
And into
like other people's
other
hands.
developers.
Yeah.
You know, so many people see it, touch it, and they may have, you know, an inkling to, you know, tell a little birdie something that they know or saw, or take a picture of something. So that's kind of amazing that we've made it this far and that hasn't happened. Obviously, Nintendo is the king of clamping down on leaks, but again, sometimes these things happen. The other thing that is different this time is we would often get kind of a pre-announcement of the announcement in kind of a financial sense.
Yeah.
Where like so we learned about the NX console.
Right.
And they said, hey, the successor is coming. It's going to be called the NX console. And that was kind of it.
Right.
And people knew. And that happened, you know, that's happened a number of times. And it's often been, again, in a financial sense. Mm-hmm. But I think this time, you know, with Switch doing so well, I can understand why they wouldn't and might just go straight to
official
hey, here it is. Everybody, check this out.
Exactly. I was going to say that the reason why is because the huge difference from where Nintendo was a company during Wii U times to where Nintendo as a company is right now during Switch times, right? During the Wii U times, it was like you could not move on to the next thing fast enough to like get people, you know, more confident and regain their confidence in the future of your company. Versus now, it's like, let's not rock the Switch boat. We still want people to buy this thing. We still don't want to cannibalize Switch in any way. So we're going to be real hush hush until the official announcement is ready.
Right.
So yeah, it is very interesting, the difference between two console generations, but here we have it.
So onto this, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups that we want to share kind of what they're doing, and you know, some of these are maybe more behind the scenes than others.
Yeah.
but it's stuff that, again, you may not have considered or known, went into launching a console. So let's start with localization. Obviously, there are plenty of games to localize, but there is also this other interesting work of all of the stuff that's on the hardware itself.
Yeah, menus.
Needs to get localized.
And, all of that stuff, like all of the UI stuff.
Right. So anything that is not a game that you are doing on that console, on that system, goes through that team, and they want to make sure that that's also the same level of quality and is understood by people in different regions. So
right.
That was kind of like I was like, but it's so obvious.
It's so obvious.
A lot of this stuff is super obvious.
And then you're like, I never thought about that.
Because it's like, that happens for a game or that happens for other projects, but it's like, for some reason with consoles, we don't think about it in that same way.
Yeah. And they would have had to start this process a long time ago.
Right. But this is an interesting one, though, where, every system now has the big, like, day one patch because they want to hit a date, but the work will continue. So that's something that will probably, continue for a fairly long period of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Next, we have the sales team, and this is a really interesting one.
Right.
Because, there's so much angst always around
stock,
getting a system.
Allocation.
We already are feeling that angst of like, gosh, we're worried. Are we going to be able to get one? Are we going to have to wait? Are we going to have to meet a guy in the McDonald's parking lot at 2 in the morning and make some shady deal? But they do the very challenging work of thinking about, like, well, if we have this many allocated to us, who gets those?
Right. Which retailers are getting what percentage? And those meetings happen, like, really far in advance. And it could be happening even without mentioning of the new hardware.
Right.
Like, these conversations that the Nintendo sales team is doing with retailers are based on so many factors, and, like, the relationship building part of it is so important. So, like, even when, like, the system isn't even rumored or announced yet, the team is thinking about what sort of allocations they're giving these retailers and why,
Yeah, they're thinking about, where's stuff selling well now, where's it not?
What audience are we trying to reach?
If you have a certain product, where's it going to do best? So, I mean, sales is constantly just a job of negotiation, because if you have a hot product, the person on the other side is negotiating to get more.
Yeah.
If you have a bad product, you are negotiating, hey buddy, take more. Take more of these Animal Crossing amiibo.
I know. And I always felt for the sales team, because they really are, like, the ones that had to do the most sort of, like, physical boots on the ground work, as we call it. Like, they're traveling to, like, Wisconsin.
Like, we're going to Bentonville, Arkansas to go talk to Walmart
in, like,
HQ.
the dead of winter and stuff. Like, I've been in Arkansas for, like, 2.5 weeks doing these retailer meetings, and you're like, oh, that sounds kind of hard.
Right.
They're always on the road. It's like literally a traveling salesman. It's that job. It's
but it takes a certain personality to be great at sales. So I think I think they kind of like it. They love it. They're cut out for it. We're not.
Yeah. But I always thought that they're such hard workers. Yeah.
The flip side of that is we're getting ready to put this new thing on shelves. You also need to get ready to take the old thing off of shelves.
Or, like, have some sort of strategy where you kind of, like, sell through the old
There's
thing
like a transition.
To make room for the new thing.
Right.
The other thing that retailer is, like, we always heard this from our sales team, is like we have to think about, like, how big the thing is, because the shelf space is very, like, coveted.
That is a limited resource. That is not something that you control. Like, it is literally a physical shelf in a store.
Yeah.
So you can't just have as many products as you want that are as big as you want and take up as much space. And this is why, like, we saw the downfall of things like the music, like Guitar Hero games, or like all the Toys to Life stuff. Because it's like, we actually can't put 50 amiibo on the shelf at once. So you don't want a situation where, like, the old Switch just vanishes.
Right, because some people might still want to have that transition.
You want to have a mix, and again, it's probably going to be a little while before Switch 2 gets fully maximum stocked.
Right.
So this is a very delicate dance of how do we slowly edge away from original Switch because still people are still going to want that.
Right.
That's still going to be in demand, but not as much as it was. So this is tough.
Yeah, and Nintendo does have some good experience doing this. Obviously, like the 3DS era, I think is, the DS, 3DS era is a good example of that sort of how do we make those transitions from the transitioning out of the older system to the newer system, knowing that some people are still preferring, the older system for whatever reason. So it is like one of those things where you have to negotiate all of this in advance with all of your retail partners and get those plans in place and reserve those shelf spaces and all that stuff. Because like unlike, a game that can be sold digitally and all that stuff, like there's only one option here.
Right.
You have to have space for like a thing. So
it is the same conversation you have about games too, but I think the backwards compatibility again informs how quickly you might want to cycle out of those, because again, you may have an original Switch game that continues to be a hot seller if it is backwards compatible. So we need to find out what happens, but if that's the case, they're thinking about that too.
Right.
Lastly,
oh boy,
this is maybe wishful thinking.
Yeah, because they don't have a good track record of this, and we lived through it.
Honestly, though, not a lot of people do. This is kind of a broken part of this process at this point in time. Pre-orders. Yes. How to not make pre-orders a complete disaster.
Mess. Yeah.
I had many conversations personally with the sales team around, hey, what can we do to not make this a free-for-all, to not make something go live at 2 a.m. so that people wake up and be like, what, it's sold out before I even knew, to give people warning to prepare. And they're like, hey, it's in the retailer's hands. They're going to do what they want. We can give them guidance, but they want to sell something. If it sells out, they're happy.
That's the thing. Like they're not really incentivized to make it, unfortunately, incentivized to make it easy for you, the consumer, because their end goal is to sell out.
Right.
And they're gonna.
If it's a scalper, it's like, well, I mean, you can do with it what you want. Once you got it from us, it's not our problem.
Yeah. We sold it.
It's our problem, which stinks for all of us.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons why this is sort of a broken system.
Yeah.
I think what Valve did when the Steam Deck was coming out was good, where it was like you needed to have an account, you needed to put a little bit of money into that.
Yeah.
Just to show that you were a real person and serious.
Right.
There's just not enough innovation and thought going into this space yet, because again, it's a lot of finger pointing of like, well, that's their problem. No, it's kind of everybody's problem, honestly, because it just gets worse and worse every time, it seems. So again, we hope that some thought is going into this. Like, let's make this a positive experience for our customers, our valuable customers.
That's the thing.
But I kind of think it's not.
That's the thing. I do think, Nintendo should be more incentivized to take a bit more responsibility in this process, because at the end of the day, yes, the retailers might not care that a scalper or some bot has purchased all of the new systems and then is making it a terrible customer experience for actual people that want to be in the Nintendo ecosystem and buy even more things from them. So, they honestly should care a little bit more, I think. And they don't right now. But hopefully they're doing a little bit better there to make some efforts to make it a bit of a better process.
Right. All right, that's enough sales. The design team does all of the packaging.
Right.
For the hardware and the software. I am such a geek when it comes to new generation software. Like, what is the package going to look like? How big is it?
Too.
What is the template? Can I get a look? Can I get a close look at this? And sometimes when I ask people this, they're like, who cares? No, I really care.
I love packaging. I love this. And Nintendo is really cool because they do have the Japanese packaging sensibilities, which is top notch.
What does that mean?
I mean, everyone knows that Japanese packaging, or the way products are put together in Japan, is so much more high level than it is here. I think the only competitor in the US is maybe Apple that has beautiful packaging.
Yeah.
But it's really cool because the teams, especially the design teams, they really work very closely with the Japanese design team, which is we had some really interesting projects that we did with the Japanese design team in the past as well when we were at Nintendo, and they definitely had a different mindset when it comes to how things looked and how they how they're controlling like a lot of the design aspects, the IP. Like it was really interesting to learn like that aspect of it because I didn't really know their mindset until I started working with them. And the design team at NOA works really closely with them to figure all of this stuff out. And they take a lot of, I think, leads from the Japanese team to like create the final packaging, which is really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Something else that they do is kind of for people outside of design is a style guide. So it's like, hey, if you're doing something with the logo, do it this way, don't do it that way. So that's how you make sure that all the materials that are going to get made and put out there look good and look consistent and don't look like a mess.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a lover of style guides. I make style guides for us.
You make them for us.
I make them for us. Like when we designed that controller with Captain Alex, guess what? I sent him a style guide. I had like our official Pantone colors, the fonts that you are to use and not use in association with the great Kit and Krysta brand. But I actually learned all of this from the NOA design team.
I mean, they think through every scenario. Like, well, if you have to do it in black and white, like here's how you can do it.
I did that for ours. Like, this is what the logo should look like in black and white.
Yeah.
Or like, don't put it against this like busy background because it's going to look really ugly.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see those, and those are super valuable documents, and they just cut down on a lot of problems and a lot of questions for them, honestly, because it's like, please refer to this. It answers your question.
And they also are creating like the official artwork for marketing as well. Like if there is like beauty shots or just official logos or whatever, like that's what there's like a database that everybody in marketing has access to. You can basically just grab that, so you make sure you're using the right logos on all your materials. And the other thing that's really fun is that like the design team and the sales team actually work really closely together around like packaging, because they obviously need to know a lot of that stuff for, like we're talking about, like you need to physically have this product on a shelf. So you need to talk to the design team and say like, hey, what are the dimensions of this box? Like, is it the same as the box for the original Nintendo Switch? Is it bigger, smaller? Like, what does it look like? How is it best displayed? So all of that is like a very sort of 360 conversation between teams to make sure that everything fits on a shelf. It looks great. Like people are not going to be confused about what they're buying. Like all of that stuff is those conversations are happening right now.
Next is licensing, which at Nintendo is Publisher-Developer Relations, PDR for short. And this is like such a crazy busy time for them because they're working with all the partners who are developing games on new hardware. Maybe these developers have questions of like, well, how do I do this on this new hardware? Can I get some help? So there's teams that are involved in that, but they really just need to keep track of what are all the games that are being made and have an eye into, hey, what looks promising that we might want to help them promote down the line and really be, this is their job, to be the face of Nintendo. That's every other game that gets made that's not made within Nintendo, which is a huge job. Yeah,
and they have like the world's biggest like calendar roadmap thing that they make where they basically, show like what are the most sort of promising games, what are the biggest partners that we want to promote alongside the launch of a new system. When are those things coming out? So you can map that launch year calendar alongside the first party games. Right. And if you guys remember, like when Switch launched, there was like that long list of games, and like there were some first party games on there, but I would say like 80% of it was third party games. Right. So that's incredibly important, and of course there's like sort of this level of, we talked about this a little bit last week, like there's a level of prestige when you can get like a big third-party partner on board. So, like, are they going to have Baldur's Gate? Are they talking to Larian? Probably yes. Yeah. To have, like, these really prestigious third-party titles, like, available day one on Switch 2.
Yeah. So their job is hard because they kind of have a little bit of all of these other teams that we're talking about folded in. Yeah. So it's very hard times for them. They're very busy.
Sales and them probably maybe the hardest because they also have to travel around a lot. And they're doing, like, all of these,
these visits.
Meetings and stuff, like studio visits and, like, again, that's like a really tough thing to do. So
the one other thing they're doing that's hard is, once word gets out that any dev kits are out, like other developers start to ask, like, hey, can we get one?
Can we get one?
And they have to be strategic in managing a lot of things of like, well, we might have a limited number of these, so who needs to get it right away? And is there a confidentiality risk of how widely we can get these things out there? When do certain studios when do we want them to get it?
Yeah. This studio has like a reputation of like.
I mean, it's probably a lot of
things accidentally.
It's probably a lot of telling people no, which isn't fun.
Yeah.
And making these partners a bit unhappy, which isn't fun. But
you have to balance that between like keeping a good relationship with them, because you
exactly.
probably do want them to get one, maybe not right now, but in the near future, and so you want to keep them kind of in your like on your bench, right, until you're ready for them. So it is like a delicate kind of balance of relationships and things like that.
Next is communications, which is our old team, and this is a team that's working very hard as well, probably. Something that we would have to do, which was a massive undertaking, but which I really enjoyed, was there's such an effort to just learn everything about this new hardware and the games and everything about it.
Yeah.
And try and think through, like, what are the questions that we could get asked and be prepared and like actually write up, like, these are our like Nintendo approved responses to those, and keep those in this sort of big document that everybody needs to know and learn.
Yeah.
And you really have to dig and be savvy to have the most comprehensive list of questions possible, and not put like, hey, Doug Bowser, now you're doing an interview and you're in a gotcha situation because we didn't think ahead of like,
this could be a question.
What is this loophole, or what is this small detail that people want to know?
Yeah.
You gotta really think hard about that.
And when we say like massive Q&A, we mean like massive Q&A. There's like probably like
It's
500
so many.
like to 1,000 questions,
Right.
like a ream of paper.
Yeah, some of them are technical, some of them are not. It's like
they're divided into like sections.
Right.
It is so detailed, and like you're always coming up with more questions as you learn more about the system. It's like a very like living, breathing kind of document.
Right.
And like we would have to study that thing like a textbook.
Yeah. And
not,
and sometimes it was hard to get the answer. It was like, who actually knows the answer to that?
Right.
We don't know.
It's really hard to get the answer, and then you have to get it all approved.
Right.
It goes through like so much approvals. Like legal has to approve it. All of Japan has to approve it. Like sometimes different dev teams have to approve it if it's based on like a game or a tech spec or something like that. So it is such a massive undertaking to get this thing made, and then to learn it, and then to train other people on how to use it. Like Doug Bowser will get media training basically on how to answer these questions, and he would have to like basically regurgitate the answers, but do it in a way where it doesn't sound like a robot.
Right. It's not everybody who's doing an interview thinking like, oh, well, here's what I think.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
Would be a disaster.
That would be a disaster.
My favorite is always when somebody would say, this is a bad question. It's like, is it bad if you get asked it by somebody in an interview?
This would happen a lot.
How bad would that be?
I would always just like give them this look like, are you kidding me? Some people say like, this question, it's not good. Let's delete it. I'm like, by deleting the question off the paper, it doesn't delete it off the minds of the
you're making
people
somebody
that
less
will
prepared.
Ask you. Like, IGN is not going to be like, oh, they deleted it off the paper, then I'm deleting it from my brain.
Right.
And it's like, are you kidding me? No, we should probably try to find the answer to that, just in case.
Right.
It's hilarious. But yeah, it becomes like a big thing, and then we do these big roundtable meetings where we go around the room and basically like quiz each other and stuff. It's very comprehensive.
Right. But then there's all sorts of other, more external facing materials like a press release and social content and all of that stuff that needs to get done and is mega under a microscope of people who want to see it and make sure that it all lines up. So there's just like an endless amount of stuff like that to put together. And
then there's like the really big things too about like, how do you talk about the new system? Like how do you describe it? Like for Switch, it was really easy. It was like the one-liner that we basically repeated until we were like numb in the brain was like, is you play anywhere, anytime, with anyone. That was like the tagline or whatever for Switch. What is it going to be for Switch 2? They're going to have to find a way to maybe keep some of that DNA from the original Switch, but also like add the new unique factor that will make you want to upgrade. So like working on that big, like we call it like a key message architecture, which is a very markety term, but working on that is like a big undertaking as well, and it goes, it's a discussion that our team would have with like the highest of the high ups of the company, including the executives and like the president in Japan, and like Doug or the other global presidents are all involved in this discussion to really like come up with what is that elevator pitch for the new system. So I think they're probably working on that as well, and then using that to inform like all of these other public-facing things.
We imagine there's going to be, either a dedicated video introducing Switch 2 or be part of a Nintendo Direct, and that's really something that the Content Lab and advertising teams, the Content Lab is basically the video
team
oriented team, and that's something that they would be working together probably in tandem, but taking a lot of direction from the teams in Japan on what it is, what is the flow, what's shown, because that does become, a global piece that all the teams use.
Likely they localize it's similar to what they would do with a Nintendo Direct. They will localize it, but the Switch reveal video obviously was something that was custom in the NOA market. So there could be something like that as well that the teams are working with, all the global teams are, because that's going to be something that's used across the board. So.
Right.
And they are going to take stuff from that, all the work that the communications team is working on, like how are we describing this? That's going to be basically translated visually into these videos. Like whatever that message is, like again for Switch, it was like play anywhere, anytime, with anyone, and you saw that in that video. So they're going to do that as well and put that into the reveal video, whatever that key message is.
This time, please buy the rights so that you can have this video up for more than a year. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No more Imagine Dragons, too. I was like oversaturated with Imagine Dragons.
Our Treehouse team, they're really like a product expertise and education team. So they are the one we say like, oh, the communications team is learning about the system. Like this is who is giving them the information.
Yeah.
So they are the first teams that need to have it in their hands and learn about it and become experts in it. And then from there, they will, meet with different teams and show it off or let them play it or make documentation so that they can also become experts themselves. So this is just like an endless job.
Yeah.
And that includes, the games, the hardware, everything about it. And and again, this is their normal job, but it's just an amplified, much bigger version of that because it's hardware and multiple games and it's this huge important thing.
Exactly. And if there are like priority launch titles that are going to be talked about alongside the new hardware, that will have to be demoed and sort of Treehouse will have to go around to educate all the other teams about that as well. And that, like, when we say all the other teams, we actually mean all the other teams. So, like, they even educate, like, legal and stuff like that on, everything about this, because you have to know the product, like, backwards and forwards to be able to do your job. So, they'll be busy.
And then finally, this is not within Nintendo, but there's a lot of agencies that work with the company, within a marketing or other sort of capacities, and they need to get involved too because Nintendo is a small company, so a lot of the actual quote work gets passed along to these agencies, and maybe it's not everybody right away. They may do sort of a tiered thing where it's like, well, now we need a small group, now we need a bigger group, now we need everybody.
Yeah.
When people are ready to learn, but. They get briefed as well. Sometimes there's like a big meeting where all the agencies come in and talk together.
I think that meeting probably happened already, like last year.
If our predictions are accurate, then that's probably already happened. And there's always a lot of encouragement of like, hey, agencies, talk amongst yourselves. Don't
come up with your good ideas.
Right. Don't just stick to the department that you are working with day to day.
Yes.
Because those are always seen as the best ideas.
Right.
The things that are kind of cross teams in nature.
Yeah, and advertising. They work with an agency to actually create the ads, so they're gonna need to brief them in early so they can actually make the video. So like actual things are happening in terms of like shooting, production. So. That does not take place all in-house. And again, that is where you have another bit of danger of like, could this leak? Nintendo has very trusted agencies that they work with, so hopefully everything will be fine. But that's always like once you kind of get outside of the walls of Nintendo is where things can get a little dicey.
Yeah. So there you have it. That's just sort of a taste of the work that's happening now, and it is a lot.
Oh my gosh.
And again, it's a lot of the same things that you do day to day, but it's the biggest, baddest version of that.
And the scrutiny
with
is
with the most pressure that you would ever imagine.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's the pressure.
Right, because it's this, make or break moment for the company. So good luck to everybody over there. We look forward to seeing the good work when it's ready.
Yes.
And hopefully it's not too long.
Yeah. I'm so happy. I just want to say that. It's a relief. I mean, it is such a wonderful experience to work on hardware launches. It's like such a big deal. It doesn't come around very often, obviously. And getting that experience is very valuable, but it is so brutal and exhausting. I think I lost years off my life, doing it. Got some gray hairs, and wrinkles. So I'm glad to remain youthful and not have to worry about it this time around.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm worried about is pre-orders. That's my only concern
that
right
will be
now.
stressful too.
Yeah, that will be stressful, but probably not as stressful as launching it.
One of our friends is very good at jumping on these things. He's always like, "Oh, I've got an extra one of these," or I landed a pre-order. Do you want
honestly, if we have one, just one between us at the start, that's all we need.
Right, so, and I'll hold on to it for us, and it'll be great.
Oh, I'll keep it in my house.
Uh-oh.
Anyways, yes. How exciting!
Yes, it is time for our big celebratory moment, talking about our 100th episode here. And like I said, we have the 10 moments that brought us to 100 episodes.
Yes.
And we each have our own lists. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to go in chronological order.
Yeah. Do you have actual dates? Because I don't know if I have actual dates.
I do have as close as I can remember it. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's a month. Never more specific than that, but it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I really, as I was making this list, I was like sort of getting like chills, like, ooh, if one of these things didn't happen right, it's over.
Right.
This would never have happened.
Right.
Crazy, right?
So maybe we'll kind of alternate, like your one, my one. You want to do it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Great. Well, why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, my first one is obviously us meeting for the first time. And I think we talk about this sometimes, but like, I actually interviewed you for your job at Nintendo.
You could have shot me down right there.
I could have shot you down. You weren't wearing a tie. I could have taken points off right there. I was a lowly assistant at the time on the PR team, which you were applying for a job for.
Right.
You had already worked previously with our mutual boss at the
Correct.
time at a different company.
At Konami.
At Konami.
Yes.
So you kind of already had like a bit of a in, which was great. And the person before you was actually like kind of terrible and didn't do the best job and didn't get along at all with like our boss.
I ended up hearing a lot about this person.
Yeah, the person was like definitely a little, he was nice to me. He was really nice to me and like it was fun and funny.
It was funny.
It was funny, but also I could see that it was very toxic between that person and, our mutual boss. And eventually that, this person got fired. And you applied for the job.
Yes.
And I believe that I was the first person you pretty much met.
Yeah, you greeted me right at the
I was
at the door.
your first interview.
Right, correct.
And I remember talking to you, and it was like a very easy conversation. Our boss also notoriously is very has a unique personality, I would say, and a lot of people, you have to be a certain type of person to get along with him. Mm-hmm. So I remember asking you very specifically, are you ready to work with this person again? Because it is it can be challenging at times. Right. He was fine, but it can be challenging at times. And you were you gave me a very, I thought, honest answer. I wasn't trying to get you with that question. I wasn't trying to bait you into
I think you were
talking crap about our boss, But I was genuinely curious because this other person had such a hard time,
right? And
eventually got fired for it. So it's are you going to be cool? Are you going to be okay? And I remember you gave me a really good answer that I was oh, okay, that was a good answer.
I don't remember what I said.
Something about it's worth it because Nintendo's my dream job.
Right.
Like that. Yeah.
I'll do my 1 and 2 because that takes us to that point. Number 1 is me getting into the industry.
Okay,
That's a long time ago. This was September 2003. This is a long time ago at this point.
Yeah. That's old. So.
My job was at the company is now called Triple Point Communications. Yeah. They had a different name then. Yeah, I spent really that whole summer after I finished college applying hard to try and get into the industry. I studied marketing in college, so to just try and break in any which way I could.
Right.
And it was tough going for a long time, where it was like I would not get any responses, I wouldn't get anything.
Right.
And I was starting to get a little bit discouraged, and I was being pretty open to the jobs that I would consider and be open to taking. And I finally got a call back from this place. I remember I was still living at my parents' thing because I didn't have a job. Oh. And I was doing the first interview with the person over there who I'm still very friendly with. And my mom like walks in, like, Kidder, how's it going? I'm like, Kidder.
Oh, so
it's
cute.
like, this is not done yet. Get out of here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So cute.
Please.
Your mom is the best. I think your mom was responsible for you getting the job. The person on the line was like, oh, cute, he's living at home.
But I mean, it is like, yes, it was long before we met, and it was, you know, it had nothing to do ultimately with this. But
well, it did though.
It was like, yes, you
have
to get into the industry, and so many people, you know, have a hard time doing that. So like that was, as they say, half the battle.
Exactly.
Right.
You got your foot in the door.
Right, and then my second one is what you had, January 2009, starting at Nintendo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't have yourself starting at Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 years before that.
You must have 9 other amazing things
2007
on your list.
was when I started at Nintendo.
Yes.
So I was there quite a bit longer than you were, actually. Yeah, anyways. My number 2 is, so I interviewed you. You joined the team. Obviously, you got hired. Joined the team, but you were, like, not my friend yet. Like, we're
bitter rivals.
I hated you. No, like we weren't like, we hadn't become like good friends or anything like that.
Right.
We were just like working on some projects together. Like, again, you were like much higher level than I was, so our paths were like not very, didn't cross too much. I would like do your expense report or like order your office supplies, like something very not related to launching games, right? But then, we had one thing that we worked on together, which was PAX. And I had basically like volunteered to like demo games at PAX. Like, they're always looking for people that could like help demo the games, and it didn't matter like what level you were at Nintendo or even like what department you were in. You could always volunteer for this, and it was a really fun way to like go to a trade show and like learn about, you know, different things. And so I would always like raise my hand to volunteer for this. And then I went to PAX. I think you were leading PAX for the PR team that year. So I was like doing some stuff with you. And then like, I think we like went out to dinner or something like that. And then I realized, okay, this person is not lame.
Not who I thought you were. I was not who you thought I was.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, at first I was like, he seems very...
You and your snap judgments.
No! I was like, you seem very, like, what's the word? Like, uninterested.
Oh, I thought you were going to say uninteresting.
And uninteresting. Both uninterested and uninteresting. But you were very, like, I think you self-proclaimed are, like, very awkward.
Yes.
You were very awkward.
Correct.
And then, like, I would try to talk to you and you'd be very awkward. And I'm like, okay. And then, like, we went out, like, basically, like, that one night during PAX. And I was like, oh.
Is this the Flipnote Studio PAX, or is this another one?
I think this might have been the Flipnote Studio. Oh, that's right. I volunteered to do that, didn't I?
Right.
Like, Flipnote Studio. Yeah. We'll talk about that later.
We've talked about it.
Yeah?
We've done that.
That was pretty bad. It was like I like no voice at the end of that. Rich Amtower. Flipnote Studio.
Flipnote Studio.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nobody cares.
But anyways, we like went out like in a non-work. It was like the first time we like did something that was not like in a meeting or at work, and I was like a normal social setting, and then I realized you were not lame.
Great.
And like you were not uninteresting.
Great. I never thought you were lame.
Really?
No.
Then why didn't you talk to me?
The awkwardness. Jeez. That was literally for everybody. That was not for you. Mine, number 3, May 2013, first episode of Nintendo Minute. We're skipping straight to that.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, that started our content careers in a way that felt very unassuming.
Yes.
Didn't know what would happen. That was, not, the goal was not to break off and, start our own content empire, but that's where it all began.
That's true. Yeah. I have 2 more before the Nintendo Minute. Oh, wait. Yeah, 2 more.
Okay.
The Nintendo Minute thing. One was, I think there was a moment after, like, I had gotten promoted or something, and I started working on more, actual game launches, and we started working together more. I realized that, like, we just worked really well together. And I think that's what keeps this thing going.
Right.
Because not only do you have to, like, sit and do a podcast every week, but there's, like, lots of actual work stuff that you have to do together, too. And there's some people that I have a really hard time working with that just, like, you have to, like, work really hard to work with them. But I don't think you and I have that relationship. Like, we work very easily together somehow. Like, we have very complementary skill sets. Like, stuff that I was very bad at, you're very good at, still is. Vice versa. So it just became, like, we always have worked well together, I think. Even, in the early days. And so I think that just made it easy for us to begin this thing because it's like, well, just be the same thing. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, or you hear about people who have like a podcast or some sort of creative thing together, and that's cool. But then you hear behind the scenes like, oh, they hate each other.
Yeah, no.
Or they don't talk outside of this thing. Yeah, it's being held on by a thread.
It's like it's like the shakiest foundation ever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's definitely not what this is.
Yeah.
Like this would not have gone this long. If that was the case.
Right, exactly. And we do have, like, the consulting stuff, too, that we work on, and that's, like, basically kind of, like, the work that we're doing when we're at Nintendo, and so now we have a very good, easy working relationship.
Exactly,
which is nice.
Exactly. All right, why don't you go again if you've got one prior to Nintendo Minute?
Are we on number 4?
Well, I don't know. What's your next one?
Okay. My next one was when you became my boss and you were not a jerk.
Now, when was that?
Yeah, I don't
What
know.
year was that?
I don't know.
You
tell me.
should.
I don't have the years.
I have dates on mine. You don't.
It would probably be, so you started what year?
2009.
I think it was 2011?
Oh, that soon? Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
I think it was 2011.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think we like reorged our team.
Right.
So before we all used to like report up to the director, which is that guy that we were joking around about being kind of hard to work with. And then we reorged our team, and then like each of the managers got an assistant manager, and I was an assistant manager at the time, and you were a manager, right?
Right.
I think that's what it was.
Right. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, when I started, I didn't have any
like direct reports.
And I think that's good because like you had enough to figure out without being responsible for those other people. So yeah, that was a good.
You started as an assistant manager.
No. Wrong.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Started as manager?
Yes.
I thought you got promoted, and then like
no.
You got promoted to senior manager, and that's when that person got mad at you. Got it. Okay. I was just trying to work my way back here. Okay.
Who was mad when?
There's a lot of people that got mad
what this
all
list
the time.
That's basically what this list is.
Who was mad and who was uninteresting?
Mad when?
What year were they uninteresting? Okay, so anyhow, we reorged, and so when you became my boss, we were already really good friends.
Right.
And we had already started doing Nintendo Minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so we
if it's 2011, then it was not. Your timelines, your story does not add up here.
Okay.
Let's hope you never have to talk to the police about something.
Why would I?
Like Ace Attorney style.
Oh, I would never.
Can't keep your story straight.
I don't have dates. Okay, so it was before Nintendo Minute, but we were already good friends.
Right.
I think. Yeah, we were already good friends, and you became my boss, and then that could have been like a moment where if you became like a bad boss, it would have been over. I would have cut you out of my life.
True.
Cut you out.
True.
Like a cancer. But you weren't.
Whoa.
But you weren't.
That's harsh.
You were a good boss. So I didn't cut you out.
Yeah, I mean that was.
That could have been bad. That could have been bad for us.
I was excited at the opportunity of that, but also a little worried because it's like, well, I do now have like more professional responsibility for this person, but I do want to help them grow and not be a bad boss.
Right.
Nobody sets out to be the bad boss, but
Don't they though?
But it happens sometimes.
It happens sometimes. And Nintendo is like weird sometimes because they make it easy for you to be a bad boss, I think.
Oh.
And when I became someone's boss, I also...
You became the bad boss?
No, I was a good boss, but I could see how it would be easy to be a bad boss.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Like, they make it easy for you to, like, not fight for the people under you sometimes.
Sure.
Like, and it is a very hard job to fight for people to get
It's a lot of work to do.
It's a lot of work for you to help a person
right.
actually grow their career. And if you didn't want to do it and you're like, not for me, like I'm not going to bother myself with this, you can very easily continue to be someone's boss and not do any of that stuff.
True. That's true.
And some people had bosses like that, and it was really hard for them. Really, really hard.
I
was very lucky because I had you as a boss, and you did not do that. And like sometimes we would have reorgs, and people would move under different bosses, and they'd be like, "Oh, thank God, I have a new boss now, and they can help me."
Right.
You know, because you need that advocate for you, and like not everybody wants to do it. Anyways, so yeah, that could have been bad. And I remember this HR meeting so clearly in my head. Because remember, like, when you became my boss, they, like, made us talk to HR together?
Yeah, they would do that for new people.
That was weird.
I think the execution was a little
so weird.
Clunky, but I think the idea was good of, like, let's just get on the same page. Like, what are your expectations?
I guess.
As, like, both sides
awkward.
of this relationship. Like, I think that's a good idea.
And then there was, like, that thing was, like, Kit is responsible for Krysta. Remember?
It's true.
It was like really scary. I was like, oh, I better not mess up. Like, Kit's responsible for me. Oh no.
It's true.
Krysta robbed a bank. Kit is responsible.
But yeah, it was kind of like a fine line to walk because I'm sure a lot of people were looking at that closely. They're like, well, is this going to be like a favoritism situation?
Yeah,
like,
we were really careful about that too.
Right. Like the whole way, and especially
were.
as I started to get more people under me too.
Yeah. I always felt like
I can't have those people thinking like, oh, well, I'm just giving every opportunity to Krysta because we're friends. Like, and hopefully I
don't think you did.
I feel like I did a good job of not having that be the case. But it was definitely a consideration.
Yeah, totally. And like producer Stephanie was my very good friend, and I became her boss, so I had like a similar situation where I didn't want other people to think like my other direct reports to think like, oh, you're just playing favorites or whatever.
Right.
So it is really tough to kind of walk that line. But anyways, that could have really gone south if you were a bad boss.
So where are we now? When is your next one?
And this is my Nintendo Minute one.
Oh, do that then.
Okay, so this one is, I think, like, we started Nintendo Minute, but Nintendo Minute became, like, quote, a thing because of that Switch unboxing video.
Oh, you're skipping ahead now. Yeah, I have that. Oh, yeah, let's do that one. Yes, I have that too.
Oh, okay, you do?
Yeah, I have that too.
That is the one, that's the one moment that I can pinpoint where I felt like this became a thing.
I agree.
And also, like, the company, like Nintendo, I think also realized, like, oh, this is a thing. And then I really saw this less like of as kind of like a side fun thing that I was doing and more of like a work thing.
Yeah.
And more of like a thing that I always wanted to, like, just, put more of my own energy and, like, also ask the company to provide us with more resources. And they did.
Yeah.
After that video, like, it went to, like, easily went to 1 million. They gave us, like, a production crew, basically, to do the rest of it. To continue Nintendo Minute. Versus it being, like, poor producer Stephanie who had no experience just, like, cobbling stuff together.
Yeah.
They gave us, like, literally a staff, which was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much like a Wii U to Switch transition that we experienced, too, where it was like, yeah, this was, we had a good product, but I think the audience was limited by the fact that there was just not much interest in Nintendo at that time. So, we got exposed to so many more people that way. We really built a lot of the audience that we still have now, thankfully, from that moment. So yeah, I would say that if I had to pinpoint like a single video that kind of catapulted us ahead, it would be that one.
We were dressed like terribly in that video. We had to wear those white Switch hoodies.
Oh, the
and you said that we looked like soccer hoodlums.
Yeah, we did.
And like
neoprene white jackets.
We were in like a full
Whose
body
idea was
neoprene. That? I don't know. They made those bad jackets for something, but it was like made out of like plastic.
It's what they were all wearing at the like Switch tour when it was
Something
touring.
About wearing white in that fabric was very unflattering. It showed all of your like unflattering.
It didn't
bits.
Fit well.
Yeah,
and it was just kind
of. And there's like a photo. The thumbnail photo is us like holding it up, and we literally look like soccer hoodlums. You're right. We just needed like a headband. We needed like a terrible headband, and we would have been like part of the Manchester United team or something. So that was fun.
Okay, I have one now. This is just a vague period of time that I'm saying is from 2014 to 2020.
Oh, wow. That's 6 years?
This is a thing that repeated a few times, and it is, Krysta considers leaving Nintendo.
Oh, that's my next one.
Oh. Perfect.
Okay, my next one is a few dicey times when
Oh, wow.
we were about. Yes, I did have a period of time where I was struggling.
In this case, 6 years.
6 years of struggle. It would like ebb and flow, my struggle. You also had a moment within that 6 years where you were struggling too.
Yes, and
I remember
we
that
will
walk.
talk about these in greater detail
Yeah,
in a future episode.
I said exactly that. We will talk about this more in
yes.
another time.
But you had, I think, 3 instances perhaps where you almost hit the road.
Yeah, you had less than me, but you definitely had some moments.
I think I had one big one.
You had one big one
Yeah.
where I was like, uh-oh. But yeah, I definitely had a few, and it was always like one of those things where you like, obviously we would talk to each other about it because we trusted each other. It wasn't like I would talk to you about this and you would like penalize me later. Like, oh, you're 1 foot out the door, I'm going to like not promote you or something like that, you know, whatever. But yeah, I always felt like every time it was like just on the brink and you like, snatch me back. But if that happened,
I know, that's why it has to be
been...
that's why it has to be on the list, because yeah, that could have been the end of all that. But then it also, I think it was also like, it made you think about things beyond Nintendo in maybe ways.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
obviously you were thinking about it more than I was if you were actually going to leave.
Right.
But it forced me to think about those things too.
Right. Exactly. It makes you think about what it is you actually wanted and like what was important to you and like why you were here in the first place. And there's many reasons to, you know, stay always when I was having those thoughts. But
Right.
there's also a lot of reasons to consider doing something else, you know? But yeah, that kind of gives you like your brain like an alternate path that sometimes you don't think about. And I'm glad that we were able to think about it over the course of those years, because eventually we had to really think about it and actually do it. So, wow, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're on 7.
I have another 2017. Do you have one sooner than that?
I have one later than that.
Okay.
So you go first.
I have December 2017, the first Nintendo Power podcast, which is not something you were involved in from the start.
Yeah.
But at that point, I obviously loved podcasts, was a fan of podcasts.
Yeah.
I was not involved in making a podcast until that point.
Right.
So with that, it was like I had an idea about a podcast. Some other people on the team had other ideas about a podcast. We all kind of came together and created the Nintendo Power podcast. And that was just a fascinating learning experience, again, to go from just an admirer of the format to like, no, now we're actually doing it. How do you do it? How do you get it out there? How do you promote it? You know, how do you put together something that's repeatable? And you know, in my case, I was not on it, but I was kind of the lead person who was involved in
like the strategy of
and like putting together ideas.
Yeah.
Month to month, we had Chris, who was our great host, and he was actually doing every episode. But again, I think we would have been in a much worse position if we had said, "Oh, let's start this podcast," if we'd never done that. You eventually came over to work on this later on as well.
I did, yeah. And I really podcast was just a blind spot for me in terms of like how to make and promote a podcast. It was like a huge blind spot. Like I was so comfortable with video, so comfortable like, with like social content, short form video, long form video. I was good there.
Yeah.
And I love podcasts too. Like I always like consumed podcast, but never went on the other side. And I was so excited when like that idea that you had got sold in, and we had finally like this official Nintendo podcast, because I think all of us that were excited about the podcast knew the possibilities of that format and how popular it was and how like easy Nintendo content could fit into that format. But yeah, I didn't know anything about, and I honestly like the audio side of podcasts. I'm still fuzzy. I'm glad I'm really glad you're here. You do all of the audio stuff for our I'm Acast. I don't know, like whatever. Like what is that? Like I never even look at the back end for our audio versions, like ever.
Great.
I'm a video person. But yeah, like that was such an interesting time, and it was one of the few times in that sort of 6-year-ish period where we were trying like new creative formats.
Yeah.
content formats
Right.
at Nintendo, and it was really cool to learn like how to do this, you know?
Yeah, so I mean that was, you know, again for us, like it was not as front and center as Nintendo Minute as far as our role, but it was super important and super valuable in getting us to this point.
Yeah, and I think I had to get over, like I was a guest on the podcast for one of like the early-ish episodes, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Oh.
Like, I don't know if I can talk for that long. It seems hard. And now look at us, 2 hours in.
Yeah. Okay.
Mine is 2020.
2020, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Which is the pandemic.
Yes.
So the pandemic happens, and we basically had to stop filming Nintendo Minute episodes. We stopped going into the office. Obviously, we were all like trapped at home. And I think that was pretty dicey too, because like this big thing, you know, Nintendo Minute was something that you and I were like, it was like the sort of like part of the gel that held this relationship together, and that was gone. We didn't like see each other every day, and that was gone. You know, we were working in such different ways. We were like trapped, you know, at home. And I think there could have been a scenario where like we just kind of gave up on all of that stuff, you know? Like what if we were like, oh well, I guess this is the end for Nintendo Minute, or like, oh well, I guess this is the end.
I never thought that.
I mean, I never thought that. But
why are you saying
that? That could have been what happened.
Okay.
Like, what if like Nintendo was like, well, I guess you're not able to do this anymore, so like we're calling it a day on this.
Stop doing work? No, I don't think they were. That was not their mindset.
Well, do the thing that they think is important, but not the other stuff. But I think it actually went the opposite way. Like I think throughout the pandemic, we were like, okay, this is like really, this creative outlet is so important to us.
Right.
Like having that connection to the community is like more important than ever, as we like were sad and alone during the pandemic. And like even like our friendship, we were like made great efforts. We had like cocktail hour.
Yeah.
Remember? Like we would just like call like FaceTime and stuff. Like we had to do a lot of work to like keep it all going, kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't have that on my list. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because that could have been like in that was a critical year. Like because in 2021 is when we decided to leave. Right. So like if that year did not go well and we were basically like drifted apart or something and we stopped doing stuff, like I think I just moved on with my life in another direction, right? Okay. Yeah.
Again, to not go too far backward, the pandemic was right on the cusp of you having another I'm leaving episode, which this one I don't think I could have unwound, but that maybe bought some time.
That's true.
for that all to happen.
It was like the end of 2019.
I remember we were like at that PAX, the PAX that should never have happened. And you were like, oh, I'm having these really big problems and all that stuff. So, again, we will tell us in the future.
That was in, like, February.
That was, yes, the end of February.
Right.
Again, the PAX that should have never happened in 2020.
Maybe gotten.
Right.
That was bad. Anyways, And then March was when we had the everything shut down.
Shortly after.
And then I was like, well, that problem solved itself. But no one could do anything. Like if you wanted a job, you couldn't. Leave.
I mean, there were a lot of people who made the plunge, and like that's not something I would have done. Like that's
kind of scary.
In the beginning of a pandemic, where it's like, well, what is the working situation? How do you do this? Some people did do that.
I couldn't do it. It was too hard. It was too
scary. I had one of my top people leave like pretty early on. And that was tough because it's like, oh, geez, like we're barely got this figured out of how we're going day to day. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that was not great.
That was a surprise.
Yes.
I really didn't see that one coming.
It was.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Right. Anyhow, my next one is September 21, announcement of the Redwood City office closing.
That's my next one too.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously well documented in our first episode.
Right.
Go back and listen to that if you haven't.
Right.
But
1 to 100. There you go.
Yeah, so after that we had three-ish months. Mm-hmm. And again, at that like very quickly we knew like, yeah, this is it.
That was a thing.
This is it.
Yeah.
But it was that was like the longest 4 months of I don't know about you, of my life, because
I like rolled my eyes so hard when you said that, because I was just thinking back to like the jerking around during those 4 months.
Right.
It's like, oh my God.
There's all of that, but again, there were like, a lot of people who were like looking to us for guidance and just wanted people to talk to, who could give perspective and like
everybody wanted to talk,
work through their own situations.
Yeah.
And again, I was glad to do it, and I felt, I I need to do this for these people, but
Yeah.
it definitely would weigh on you
take a
at
toll.
a certain point of, gosh, like literally everybody in this office is going through this thing, which sucks.
Yeah.
And yeah, the company did make some missteps with that too.
Yeah. I think for me, like in that moment of turmoil in those 4 months after the announcement, I was pretty relieved that you and I, without even much discussion, or like, we just came to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
About leaving together and doing starting our own thing.
Right.
Doing our own thing. Like we basically like you might think that months and months we were having like deep strategic discussions about how to do this. We literally, I think we like looked at each other and were like, yeah, we're doing this, right?
Right.
Yeah, it took like 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And then we were just like doing it. So that was very, I think, encouraging when you like have that thought and then the person you want to
I didn't have to sell you.
No one had to sell each other.
Right.
Like everyone just was on the same page.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Right.
So yeah, we pretty easily came to our decision, and then we were just around for people that wanted to talk about what they wanted to do, and everyone had sort of different different motivations and stuff, and so it was interesting to hear what people were thinking, and obviously it all worked out. Everyone is fine, so yeah, so it was okay at the end, but it was tough in those 4 months.
I think your next one is maybe one that I forgot to add, so I'm curious what it is.
Mine is announcing the end of Nintendo Minute.
Oh, okay. I didn't have that on my list, actually.
The reason why I have this on my list is because, so now I do have my timeline correct. So in September, when they announced the office closure, right?
Yes.
Then we decided like 10 minutes later that we were going to leave and start our own content. And then we started planning like, how do we end Nintendo Minute?
Right.
And we decided to end it in December of that year. And so we had already been planning, like, before we ended Nintendo Minute, that we're going to start this other thing, independent. But I was still pretty scared. Like, I was going to do it, obviously. I was excited about doing it, but I was still, like, pretty nervous about, like, losing the safety net of, like, a corporate job. And, like, starting out fresh is always, it's intimidating. We were, like, talking to Reggie during that time, and he was encouraging us and all that stuff.
That's what I thought maybe your thing would have been, talking to Reggie.
Reggie is always. And then we ended Nintendo Minute. We put out that last episode. And like the crazy amount of support from the community was like, oh my gosh. Like I always knew that you guys were there. But like just to see it like all at once like that was like ridiculous. Like crazy. So then I was like very like boistered from it. Like I was like, okay, now I'm excited to do this because these people are there.
Right.
Like we want to continue to, like, be a part of this community, like foster this community, and like obviously they are out there. So then I was like, yay! I was like really happy, and then I like happy cried for like 4 weeks after that. But then just seeing that the incredible responses from our community, and now having our community here with us for 100 episodes is like really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have any other Nintendo, while we're at Nintendo, things on your list?
No.
No.
Well, I only have one more thing left. So.
Oh, I have the first podcast episode. It's February 2022.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was at your mom's house. That was like the first era of all this. I remember moving in there, getting to know your mom. I got to make a bottle of wine. Got to make a good first impression with mom.
Mom loved it.
I remember we would like record, and it was like, I've made lunch. Come join us and eat lunch. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is a different kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, that was obviously the beginning, and that was the first video that we made. It wasn't the first video we made for the channel. No. I'm wrong. No.
We did an announcement.
We did a few other things leading up to that.
Yeah.
But
that was like the first official. That first official announcement was pretty exciting.
Yeah. And that first podcast did great.
Yeah.
Definitely did its job of making people known like what this was going to be, because it was going to be very different, and getting people comfortable with the format and hopefully liking the format.
Yeah.
So that was, I'd say that was a successful launch of the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Or are you so silent?
I don't know if I should go or if you should go. I'll keep going.
Number 10 is my last one. Are you on number 10?
I have September 2022. Do you have that?
No.
No.
My last one is kind of like a nothing, but whatever.
Oh. I have so this is the Reggie episode that we did with him at PAX.
Yeah.
And I had that one there because, so I said that, the first episode did really well. We did go through kind of a rough period in between the launch up to the Reggie episode. Like, where there were times in that summer where, like, things were not, like, some episodes were not going that well.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
doing that well. I was like, is this gonna fizzle out? Like, are people, like, gonna lose interest? Like, what exactly is happening?
We were trying to, like, find our identity a little bit, too.
Right.
Like, what types of content is the audience most interested in? Like,
right.
we were still kind of feeling that out.
Right. And Reggie was our first guest, and obviously that was like a great boost, and I think that boost has just like continued into now where the podcast is very strong.
Yeah.
And we have this, established format, and people seem to like it.
Yeah.
So I think that was just like getting us out of the, at times scary early months where we just didn't have a clean read on what was happening.
Yeah, it's true, because we were just trying to like figure it out still.
Right.
Yeah. Then we like kind of understood like what to focus on.
Right.
And that made it a little bit easier to predict.
Okay.
Stop looking at my paper.
I'm going to go with mine. My last one is December 2022, when Nintendo Minute was removed from the Nintendo YouTube channel, and I think we were all maybe surprised that we were not very we did not feel down about this very much. And I think that signified that we had fully moved on, and that we were not about the nostalgia of that. We were about the new thing and about the future. And I think that was very encouraging and reinforced all of the great decisions. Again, I felt more bad for all of the people who wanted to watch those, who could no longer do so.
Right, yeah.
That's a bummer. That continues to be a bummer, but it was just like a reinforcement again that yes, we have properly moved on and we are in our new era, and it's about that.
Yeah. Much like Nintendo.
Right.
Likes to move on from nostalgic things to the new thing. We have fully moved on.
Where's the Nintendo Minute wing gonna be at the Nintendo Museum?
Oh! I'm like a statue. I'm like a wax statue of me. That's great.
That would be cool.
On a couch? That's so
wax?
Cute. Wax.
Bronze. That's just not
bronze.
Madame Tussauds and some tourist trap? No.
You have like animatronics.
No.
Nintendo Minute is never like you have like an animatronic of you? That's cute.
They have the couch. Put the couch behind glass.
Oh, we have the couch. Yeah.
We don't have the couch.
We have the couch.
Somebody else has the couch.
My last one is just like we learned some really good lessons from Nintendo.
Oh.
And from doing Nintendo Minute for so many years. And that is the lessons are like consistency.
Yes.
And just like you have to just keep doing it.
Right.
You cannot skip weeks. You cannot make excuses to not do it. You literally, there's no shortcut to this kind of stuff. You just have to be consistent. And also it's work. Every day is work. Like your relationship with somebody else is work. You have to actually try to, work together and actually try to make this stuff. It just doesn't appear out of thin air. Yeah. And I think that important lesson is what we carried with us into this, and that's how we made it to 100 episodes.
Exactly.
It's every single week, you do the work. You show up and you do it.
Yeah.
So, there you have it. Yes.
That's your 10th one?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Wow.
We, of course, asked our good folks at Patreon what they thought about their favorite moments from the podcast over the 100 episodes. Medallion says, my favorite moment is still Kit confronting his hate for Sonic the Hedgehog and sharing the story with the public through Sega Katie's appearance. That was a good one.
I love that.
It's classic.
Classic.
Glenn Lumanta says, the story about Koji Kondo writing out the Imagine Dragons chords on a napkin will always stick with me. Also made me laugh for a moment. Koji paused in front of the piano, and Kit was thinking, does this man actually not know how to play music? Such an interesting moment that you guys got to witness. That was from our Jeff Keighley episode, which, a little bit of podcast trivia, is our best performing episode ever.
Over 500,000 views.
Oh, it's well beyond that. Yes.
Yeah, it's doing great. Thanks, Jeff.
Renata Rex says, I loved all the funny moments and jokes that came from this podcast. There are a number of moments that made me laugh so hard. A few of these moments are when Kit expresses his feelings about Sonic and the many Kongs.
Oh, you don't like the Kongs.
Checking in with Reggie to see if Link is still hot.
We'll check in every year.
Krista's relationship with her rabid husband.
Ew.
When Kit walked out of the office tournament and the bickering between you two, there are so many more funny moments like these that came from the podcast. Great job on reaching 100. Thank you. And then finally, switching it up _ says, congrats on 100 episodes, you two. My favorite moment was when you had all the ex-Nintendo friends sit around and share their stories and how comfortable you all were together. I love learning little tidbits like working in a kitchen to upload video trailers to YouTube in the early days of social media whilst at E3. It was a fun episode and really encapsulated the spirit of your podcast. Here's to 100 more.
Yes, we'll have more
Wonderful.
ex-Nintendo friends on soon. And yeah, I did not know until right now that kitchen was actually a kitchen.
The kitchen.
I didn't know. It's awesome.
Well, that was a wonderful little celebration of these 100
Yay!
episodes, and again, this is not the end.
I don't think I can come up with 100 reasons when we hit 1 million episodes. Wait, what is the ratio? So 10 reasons for 100?
It'll still be 10.
So is it 100 reasons for 1 million?
No, it won't be 100 reasons.
Oh, thank goodness.
It won't be.
I don't think when I'm like
It's
90,
not a ratio. It's not a
I'm
math. This is not math.
When I'm like 98, I
A
don't think I can
podcast
come
is not
up
a
with
math
100.
equation.
I'm probably going to remember 100
You
things.
weirdo. What the heck? All right, well, you do something on your calculator. I'm going to say this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we think about the things that we want to accomplish or change about ourselves for the new year,
Yes.
it's good to also think about the things that we are already doing right.
Exactly.
But sometimes it is hard for us to separate those two things. And this is where a BetterHelp therapist can help you understand all of this.
Yeah, I think it's easy, especially with this like new year, new you mentality or whatever,
Right.
for you to kind of get out of the mindset of like, I need to change everything about me and everything that I'm doing now is wrong.
Everything was bad and
Everything
wrong.
was bad. Yeah,
Right.
to have these negative thoughts, we have them too, can be unhealthy. So it's good to have somebody like a BetterHelp therapist kind of talk you through, you know, what your goals might be for 2024. They can help you come up with goals in a more positive way, maybe to really give you just a bit more of a positive outlook on the new year.
Exactly, and it's so flexible to use BetterHelp. You take a short questionnaire and get matched up with a therapist, and then from there you can meet with them on video, you can meet with them on audio, even on text only. We've both done it and found it extremely convenient and also very helpful.
Yes, very much so.
So, celebrate the progress you have already made. Visit betterhelp.com/Kit and Krysta today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kit and Krysta.
We'll put the link right over here and also in the description below.
All right, games we're playing, which again does not include Prince of Persia. Please look for our separate video on that very soon. You've started another Ubisoft game, though.
Yeah.
You started it like a day before we got these codes, so
I didn't know we were going to
I want to
get
hear
the
how this is
codes
going.
early, but I've been playing both.
Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Yeah, I've been getting the Ubisoft like all the way.
You have.
It's great. I love it. I have sat on Assassin's Creed Mirage. I did not get to it last year because it was very, very busy for us towards that end of the year stretch. But Assassin's Creed is one of my favorite series of all time. I was really interested in this game. You know, they talked a lot about sort of this is the return to basics.
Yes.
Assassin's Creed. It's sort of like quote like the old school version of it, whatever that means to you. So I did want to check it out. So I started it. Also, it's on like deep discount now. It's like $30.
Was probably. I think all those holiday sales are over.
I got it recently for that price.
Okay.
So I mean, if y'all want to check it out, it's not super expensive.
What was the starting price for this? Was $50? Like
think so.
It was not like a max price game from the beginning.
Right. But it's $30 when I got it.
Yeah, that's a great price.
Good for this game. But yes, you play as Basim. The location is Baghdad.
What year is it? Roughly?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't tell you.
But
1200s.
Is it different from? So Basim was in Valhalla. Is he just going to another place in the same time frame?
No.
Or is there somehow
this is Basim's origin story?
somehow time travel involved?
No.
So slightly before the events of Valhalla.
Before Valhalla.
Got it.
So that was what, like 1200?
You talk and I'll look it up.
Okay. Anyways, so you basically learn his origin story of how he becomes part of the, the hidden ones or whatever. And
861.
861. That was off by 400 years.
Wow.
Sorry. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, the location is very interesting to me. I am ashamed to admit that my historical knowledge of this area is very limited.
Yeah.
So I'm really loving getting to know, getting a look around Baghdad, looking at all the historical sites. It definitely has a lot of that still integrated in the game. Like you can go and check out the history. You can learn different stories, different mythologies from this location, which is really cool. It's all new to me. So it's been great to kind of explore around. And that's one of my favorite parts about playing Assassin's Creed is learning all the historical stuff and learning all the lore and stuff like that. So that's been really fun. I do kind of like this idea of it being a bit of an origin story for him. You really start out not being a assassin at all. The beginning of the game is you're just a normal person. And then these events happen that lead you to join the hidden ones. And now you're now I'm fully in the sort of the more, I guess, quote, traditional Assassin's Creed gameplay loop, which is you have all of these enemies that you need to uncover and take down. You got to gather the clues to figure out who they are and how they're related. They do that thing where once you do a certain part, it reveals the clue that leads you closer to the identity of that person that you need to assassinate.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have this unfolding mystery. And yeah, the story is really interesting. It had some big shocker moments right at the beginning where you're oh my gosh. And I think it's setting up for something pretty good. I kind of get a feeling that some of the characters are going to have interesting relationships to you in the future. And yeah, and they do all the things that Assassin's Creed games do well that you that I like. You still want to climb. Lots of things for you to climb to get when you get a synchronized an eagle point, it does that flyby, that drone shot, and you're wow. And yeah, you have all the outfits. I like the outfits. I'm always dyeing customizing the outfits and stuff. And all of the missions feel really good so far. I know you were a little bit worried because you said some of the stealth missions can be a little bit annoying. You didn't like the ones where you had to follow them closely but not too closely.
Yeah, there were some.
Yeah, there was
things.
some.
The stealth was a little unforgiving in the original games.
Right.
And there were some mission types. When I hear them say we're going back to that, my mind immediately goes to that. I'm I really don't want to do that.
There's one type of mission that I really dislike that I haven't encountered yet, but I hope I never encounter
From the
again.
old games?
Yeah.
Oh, what is that?
Which is you have to follow them and listen to their conversation.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I hate that
That's
one.
the one, yeah.
And if you get too close, you desync.
Right. It's you've been detected, but then they can quickly go too far.
Yeah, so you're crouched and skulking around.
Yeah. So you have not done one of those?
No.
Okay.
And the stealth seems to be very, so far, pretty forgiving.
Right.
I was doing this area that was a enemy territory, and I had to free these prisoners.
Right.
And
control the towers.
I love controlling the towers.
Are there towers?
They're definitely towers. But I had to free these prisoners. But you could kind of just crouch and walk up to a guy and pretty. It was pretty forgiving.
Now, what if you get into a face-to-face fight?
Face-to-face
How is that?
fight. The combat is actually kind of hard. And again, I was is this me? Why is this game so hard? I had to turn it down to easy because I was playing on normal, and then it was really hard.
I mean, the last games got very actiony, where it was just plow through guys. The stealth was a little minimized. So if it is a true back to basics, then they probably want to de-incentivize you from just walking up to a guy and saying, let's get into a sword fight.
Yeah, I definitely I always choose stealth in these games because I'm kind of bad at the head-to-head.
Yeah.
And I also play this game because I like stealth games.
Yeah.
I like this game for the stealth, the good stealth, not the one that's annoying. But there is some times where you get into a fight with enemies. I'm just having a hard time with the parrying a little bit, the dodging. So I just keep getting whacked, which is a little annoying. And I keep forgetting what button to press, auto lock, and so I think it's my problem. But I started out playing on normal, and then I was like, this is kind of hard. So I put it on easy until I learned the controls.
Yeah.
And I think once I learned the controls a little bit more, I'll probably like turn it back up. But
Okay.
at first, I was having kind of a hard time with the face-to-face combat. But the stealth is not annoying so far. And yeah, you still do those things where like you can, like if you get too notorious, the guards will just come after you. But you can like rip posters off walls or like bribe the police or whatever to decrease that. So you can just like walk around the city without having people like chasing you all the time, which that was kind of annoying too.
Right.
But yeah, like I would say it does all of the things that you like about Assassin's Creed games pretty well so far. And I'm really interested in this location. Like I really want to learn more.
Yeah.
So that's keeping me really interested. And it's beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, like the scenery is so beautiful. And like you go into these like mosques and stuff and like, oh my gosh, it's like the mosaic tile work, like even like the nature, you know, they have like all these beautiful plants and stuff everywhere, and you're like, oh, this is such a beautiful place. And I do want to explore that. So I'm really liking it so far. It's good.
Now, for people who don't know much about Assassin's Creed, there's kind of the like on paper, like, yes, you were a guy in the past storyline.
Oh, yeah,
but there is also this bigger overarching thing that is really bonkers and crazy.
It is so weird.
About like ancient aliens.
Yeah. And you're like in sort of like this future tech called the Animus.
So how much of that is there?
Very little so far, because I don't like that part, to be honest. I hate it when you have to play as the real world person. You're like,
I don't like that.
Just a normal person.
I don't like that. But
remember when we had to be Desmond, and I was like, I hate Desmond. He sucks. I don't want him. I don't like him at all. But yeah, like there's definitely a little peek of like just reminding you that you're in like a thing, like you're not, you're like, you know, a person in the present or whatever, traveling to the past through this technology. They remind you of that in the beginning, but it kind of, you know, sticks to you as Basim pretty much since that first little like 30-second thing. Yeah. But then there's in story-wise, they have like, they always give you like some artifact that's like very like galaxy brain, like aliens are coming.
I like that part of it.
Last time it was like the Apple of Eden.
Yeah, it's
right. And it was like some crazy stuff happens when you touch the thing, and for generations, you know, people have been like seeking this artifact. Right. They give you another one.
Oh, there's a new one?
There's a new one. I don't know what it is yet, but something happened, and that's the main artifact.
There's like a hidden ending of Valhalla that is so bonkers, crazy, nutso. Oh my
God, I don't know.
That Basim is in, because again, he's in that game. Because they kind of like through the series vacillate of like, how much do we want to talk about this?
Yeah, because no one liked it at first.
Because I think it's, unless you follow the series, it's probably a turnoff of like, what is happening here? I just want to stab guys.
Yeah, remember like in the Greek one too, like Minerva shows up, and you're like that one, like it's like really confusing and strange.
Right. But as somebody who has played from the beginning, I really kind of like that stuff. Okay, I'm glad to hear there's some of that.
Yeah, I know they totally, and then they have some weird stuff going on that's like very alien-ish. And you're like, okay, there's a higher power. Something's happening. But yeah, Basim, obviously, in this game, he has no clue what's happening. He gets the artifact, the thing, you know, in the very beginning. He's like, what's this? And he's like, why did this happen? So it's like a lot of open questions, which is good, because you want to set up for him to like discover what this is all about. But yeah, they make you do the thing, though, when you cut your finger off.
Oh, yeah.
They make you press a button to do it. And I had to
on the controller.
I had to close my eyes, and then I was like feeling around.
Well, I'm sure you don't see it.
I don't know if I saw it because I closed my eyes. I didn't want to look at it.
Get the pressure like, on the DualSense trigger.
It was like trigger. A DualSense, like it was like an R2 that I was like. And then you, of course you get the you cut off this finger, right, and then you have the blade. Yeah. Ooh, grisly. But yeah, I was like, oh, they make me do it? I don't want to do it. Sometimes it's just a cutscene. You can just close your eyes.
I think this game is a bit on the shorter side.
I hope so. That's why I started it. I was like, I could probably finish this before I get Prince of Persia. And then, well, there we go. Right. But now I'm playing both. It's fine.
I'm also playing both. I am still continuing with Cyberpunk, the Phantom Liberty DLC, which is a lot more stuff than I expected going into this.
You're like way into this now.
I am. So I've probably played like 12-ish hours of this now. And I did just glance at a guide because I was like, oh, I think I may have just done like the last big mission. And maybe I have like 1 or 2 more things before it wraps up. And I just looked at like the list of missions and it's like, oh no. I'm maybe 2/3 through this at this point.
Oh.
So
that's quite long for DLC.
So, I mean, again, considering that I got through the original game
in like 20
hours.
Right.
Like, this is such a significant piece of content.
But you replayed the original game.
I started from the beginning.
You literally started from the beginning, and then you...
So it took me about 10 hours to get to the point where I could start the DLC.
Okay, so that's
and now I'm at about 22-ish hours.
So you probably have up to like 30 hours.
So so once I finish that, I'll have another 10-ish hours to go.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it's not like this was... I definitely critical pathed it the first time. It's not like this game is lacking for content or anything. But
right.
But I've just been surprised. Like, it did not have to be this big.
So robust.
It is $30 though, so it's good that it is because you feel like you're getting a lot of value for it.
Yeah, and it's like a really good story. Like you said, it's like really, really interesting.
I love it. Yeah.
There's new characters.
Right.
And all sorts of things that happen.
It's got this kind of like, spy intrigue storyline going for it. So now I have so the president is safe.
Thank goodness.
Again, the president like crash landed and you had to evac her.
Yeah.
And then you get connected with her sort of personal spy who is Idris Elba.
Yeah.
But there's this other person, this woman who is a net runner who is kind of like it's a very Matrixy who they jack into the net.
Oh, that's right. I remember
the information superhighway.
You gotta jack in.
And she is also like part of the president's crew, and there's this whole like this doubt in your mind of like, am I getting played by one or the other people here? You don't know. And they both know each other, but there's a lot of suspicion between them. So you're kind of caught in the middle of this thing of like, who do I trust?
I see.
I'm doing things for both of them, but is it for the right reasons? Is it for the reasons that they're saying? I don't know. So that's been a very interesting kind of position for you to put your character in. I did a very cool set piece recently, which was you're sort of infiltrating. So again, I'm in this dog town, which is kind of like a city within a city of Night City, where the game takes place. And there's a guy who's in charge of that, and you like infiltrate this big party that he is having for the Night City elite. And
it's very 007.
You have to like sneak in, and like you and Idris Elba are like protecting each other as you get in, and then you like put on these ridiculous suits, and then you're like hanging out at this party.
Yeah.
And this party is so well done, and it's just like they just did a good job of like nailing the ambiance of being at a big party and like a big cool venue.
You need like good sound design for that. You need like that din of conversation.
They exactly had that.
You need like a little music in the background.
There was actually like a live concert happening.
Yeah, exactly. You need like the lighting, all that.
And all the characters were in like unique outfits that I had not seen before, like their party attire.
Definitely in like gala attire.
Right. There's a lot of different things that you can go. Like you can go walk up to the bar. It's like a casino setting. You can go do like stuff at this casino. So
cool.
Again, like these types of games like can sometimes fall apart when they try to recreate something. I keep going back to Starfield when I think of this game.
Yeah.
And like Starfield had kind of like a nightclub scene that I thought was super lame, where there were like 8 people doing this like 5-frame dance around a disco ball or something.
You don't have the vibes.
But they packed this with people. There's like so many people in here.
Wow.
It just felt like you were a part of this thing. And again, it was all like unique work for this one little scene of the game, which is an important scene, but they definitely didn't like skimp on making it feel different and unique and special.
Sort of reminds me a little bit like of that part in Spider-Man where you're at Coney Island.
Yeah.
Where like all the little games are interactive.
Exactly.
Like, they didn't have to do that. Right. But it's like, wow, like you really made an effort to make this feel so real.
Yeah.
And I think it pays off in games like this where you like just really need to get your headspace into the atmosphere and the the moment for the characters.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I've got a ways to go still, but I honestly don't know what's going to happen, and that's propelling, you know, a lot of what I'm doing. At the same time, I've fallen back, and now I'm reading all my Cyberpunk books.
I gave them back to you, so I told you.
That tabletop rules book where they have just a lot of the lore and like kind of the setting of that futuristic world. I've been reading that again because it's just so rich and so good. And that guy, Mike Pondsmith, who came up with a lot of this stuff, like he is like a real genius. And I've been reading more about like the collaboration that he had with CD Projekt of making this game. And he was like, yeah, I had so much faith in them that like when we were coming up with a lot of the lore, like I would let them come up with it. I didn't feel like I had to do everything for them. Like they understood it so well that they could do it. So I'm all the way sucked back into this, and I will continue and finish the game once I get through this. But yeah, it's been fun to trade off between that and Prince of Persia, which is completely different.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'm still hopeful that we'll eventually get to do our great Cyberpunk video idea. And I still can't
Don't say what it is. Don't say what it is. No. Let's move on to the news. It's yet another slow news week.
It's kind of a weird
that we've had. So we're like two weeks into the new year. This is CES happening this week. Often Sony will do some sort of a talk at CES, and they'll talk about PlayStation-y things. Yeah. But CES has not really been the place for games for a while now, so I'm not really holding my breath that there's going to be some big thing coming out of that. Yeah. Got some news about the Minecraft movie, which is coming out next year. And Jack Black has signed on to play Steve in Minecraft. And there are some other people who are signed on to this. I don't recognize these names. Emma Myers, Danielle Brooks, Sebastian.
You know Jason Momoa.
Hansen. With Jason Momoa is the one that I do know. Yeah. Do you know any of these other people? No.
I don't.
So obviously Jack Black is Bowser.
Right.
How do you feel about him just taking on all these big gaming characters?
Roles? He certainly has a passion, I think. It's clear that he really just does truly like video games. He was so iconic as Bowser. You know, it's going to be fun and interesting to see, I guess, what he does with this character, which is completely different. But yeah, I think there's a comedic sort of element that he can bring to any character. So yeah, I'm fine with it. Go for it, Jack Black.
As I was looking this up, like there's very little information
about like what this movie
on this movie. Yeah. I'm assuming this is animated, but like nobody specifically said that.
I imagine it to be animated.
For a movie that's coming out next year, like there's surprisingly little information about it. So I thought that was a little weird. I don't know, if I'm Nintendo, I think I'm kind of peeved by this. Where it's
if you're Nintendo, you might be peeved.
You will have this long-term role as this important character, who I think could be even more important in future movies. If they do the thing where they make Bowser a hero and they team up to fight a communal villain. I think they'll do that.
They're gonna do that.
Then it's like, maybe we love it if you didn't take on all these video game roles and not have such a leading role. Obviously, it's probably animation, so it's not like his face, but he is such a larger than life figure.
And he's gonna be out there.
He's gonna be one of the main people out there doing the promotion. Yeah. So again, there's nothing you can do about it. Right. But I think they would wish that maybe this was not happening.
I'm sure they wish that. I think for Jack Black, he's probably like, cool.
It's like, yeah, this is cool. I want to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. He doesn't care.
Right. Yeah. I guess you probably could write up something in one of these Hollywood contracts of like,
there's no
if you want to do this, you can't do that.
That kind of exclusivity from Jack Black. I mean, a lot of do other video game movies.
A lot of those things you think about, like after the first movie comes out and is a hit, where it's like you didn't have the leverage before. Yeah. Now that it's made $1 billion, you'd like to do it, but you can't go back.
And Nintendo did have some leverage going in, I would say, but I still don't think that kind of clause is pretty hard. I think to be in a contract. Yeah, but I'm sure they're like, for them, they would like, never want any of their actors to do anything ever again except for Nintendo.
Right,
so
exactly.
That's what they would like, but that's just not the reality, unfortunately.
There was also this really interesting story about this this guy, Willis Gibson, who goes by the name Blue Scooty, who finished Tetris. Yeah. And was the first person to properly finish Tetris, which is this amazing accomplishment. I can't believe that we've gone this far without somebody doing this.
Right. It's amazing.
But the story kind of got you know, this weird twist on it where there was this reporter in Britain who, you know, was reporting on this, and they kind of ended it with this snarky thing of like, why don't you go outside, you nerd?
Oh, like touch grass?
Right,
Yeah.
basically that. So that kind of kicked off this whole debate of, you know, why does the mainstream still not appreciate this? And they were saying, like, if this guy had become this chess grandmaster, we would be celebrating him.
He'd be on the cover of Time magazine.
Exactly. So what is the difference? We got an interesting question. I can't remember if it was for the main podcast or for a bonus Q&A about like the term gamer and how we feel about that. And my mind immediately went to that of like there's still
like a negative connotation, I think.
Right. There's a lot of negativity around people who play games extensively or who have that as, you know, a really kind of lead hobby in their life, which is too bad. And, you know, we keep saying like, well, eventually these people will die off, but
I don't know.
the woman who was saying this was not that old.
Yeah,
so
it's like there's still this like huge part of like the mainstream, whatever you want to call it, that still I think view video games in that way of like it's just some socially, you know, awkward person
it's a waste of time
in their parents' basement, wasting their life away playing video games, where, you know, it should be celebrated as any art form, you know, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and people were also pointing out like, well, oh, this is a waste of time, but people just like binging Netflix or like your beloved trashy reality TV, like nobody ever gets called out for doing that.
Or like,
which
what if
is
you're just on TikTok like 23 hours a day?
Which is all true.
You know?
So I don't have the solution for how to get beyond this, but it is very frustrating. When it happens, and it's too bad that it kind of, you know, marred this great accomplishment that this kid has.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
It's an incredible accomplishment. I don't think that he should be feeling any type of way from this very sort of ignorant comment, but he should be proud.
I have seen a lot of love for him, you know, from, you know, the people, the creator of Tetris, like reached out to him. I saw
that's so
that,
nice.
and you know, a lot of other people have been reaching out. So that's been great to see because this is.
Awesome.
I mean, how old is Tetris? Like, I couldn't believe that this had never been done.
It's crazy, and a 13-year-old kid too. Wow,
right.
What an amazing accomplishment.
Last news story is also on CD Projekt Red. They were talking. They did an interview with a Polish outlet, and they were talking about how they are not interested in being acquired by another company.
They're like us.
I'll just read the quote. We're not interested in integrating ourselves into any larger entity. Throughout our entire lives, we have worked towards the position we currently hold. We believe that in a few years, we will be even bigger and stronger.
Good for them.
So I think this is the right outlook. I think if you think like, well, what would be better if if EA bought CD Projekt? What would be better? What would be better for them? What would the benefit or the upside be for them? And there's not a lot.
Yeah, it's true.
Can you think of anything?
Maybe more money.
Seems like they have plenty of money.
Seems like they have.
These games
the only thing, like financial stability, is the only thing I could potentially.
Of getting when all your people get laid off.
I mean, then no. I really can't, honestly. I think that they're taking the right approach. Clearly, they have established something really great, and they can maintain their creative independence, and they can do things their way, and also scale things at the pace that's comfortable for them. So good for them.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is the dream of staying independent. Like, yeah, we're doing things our way. We can do things the way that the big companies do it and sell at the scale of the big companies, but we are not at their whim. We can keep our mindset, we can keep our culture, and not have to sacrifice ourselves to do that. Because that does feel like, I mean, it's like selling out. It's like you are giving up something of what you were. That's part of the deal.
Right.
As Don Draper says, that's what the money's for.
That's true. We can learn a lot from Don Draper.
Yeah, so I think that's a great thing. I mean, they have really expanded. Like, they have studios in a lot of other places outside Poland, and I have to imagine, again, if in that hypothetical where EA acquired them, I think one of the first things they would say was like, well, you don't need those anymore. Let's shut those down.
Shut those down. And also, you're making the next, like, whatever now. So
yeah, you're getting on Battlefield now. Good luck.
Can you imagine? I would be so mad.
Right. So I think this is the right mindset.
I'm glad.
I wonder if more people now, after everything that's happened this year, have different feelings about the potential of being acquired. Will some people hold out for longer? Will some people hold out forever? Because there have been so many horror stories over the past year of these acquisitions not working out.
Right.
I have to imagine some people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sort of trust lost from you know, the horror stories there.
And that's it for the news.
Oh boy.
Please give us some better news for next week, world.
Switch to announcement?
Thank you. Maybe not that yet. All right. We're on to the questions from our community. We always get those from our Patreon subscribers. Thank you very much. Phantom Cookie is first. Hi, K and K. Which K is you and which K is me?
I'm number 1.
We shall not know. I have a bit of a cheeky question here. Though, that's not going to stop me from asking it. Now that you've made it to episode 100 of the podcast, that's almost a quarter of the total number of Nintendo Minute episodes. Very true. Do you think that years from now, this podcast could also get to 400 plus episodes, or is it too far early to tell?
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
I have no plans of stopping, ever. You're going to listen to my voice until the world ends. I don't know, I honestly, that's what we were saying in the beginning, like, yeah, 100 is a great achievement, but it didn't feel like, oh God, what a slog it was to get to 100
fine. Well,
episodes.
we're just getting going now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we're on the same pace as Nintendo Minute, where we have something weekly.
Weekly, yep.
And we've got a great kind of workflow that makes that realistic and feasible. So yeah, I think as long as we enjoy it and the people consuming it enjoy it as well, there's no reason to stop it.
Exactly.
So
how exciting.
400, here we come.
Yes.
Gary Vogt asks, with Nintendo, I have noticed their games often do not go on sale, or if they do, they tend to be at lesser discounts than other publishers offer. With the Switch coming to the end of its life, could we see the return of Nintendo Selects? And if so, what games do you think would be part of the selection?
Yeah, I think there's going to be sort of this like transitional period like we were talking about where there's going to be, you know, Nintendo's going to need to support both Switch and the next hardware. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do from a games perspective. The thing, though, with sales and how Nintendo view it is that, like, if there are people continuing to buy it and there is a huge audience still playing it, then, like, what is the advantage of them putting anything on sale?
Right.
You know, they're not going to do it until it's, like, absolutely necessary.
It's not something you do until you have to.
Exactly.
Right, and they don't have to do it even now. And I think we go the whole generation without them having to do it. I mean, they haven't had to drop the price of the hardware at all. That's something you would also typically see before now.
Yeah.
And yeah, things will slow down as we get closer to this transition, but I imagine if they crunch the numbers of like, well, you know, this number at full price or this number at a little bit less, it's probably not that different.
Right.
So why even go to the trouble and, you know, this symbolic. And people remember when you cut price. Like, so many people were saying, like, oh, I won't buy, you know, the Sonic the Hedgehog game didn't do well because they cut the price like a week later.
Yeah, they're going to cut it.
Right.
So I'm just going to wait till then.
Certain companies are notorious for dropping the price, like, immediately.
Right.
So I think they are happy. Like, we don't do that. People, take note. Buy it now. Yeah. It's not going to change.
Right. Buy now, buy later. It's not going to change.
So I don't think they see much point of dropping the price like last second in a generation.
Yeah. And if there's backwards compatibility too, then like why would they bother dropping the price?
Right.
They might bundle it, you know, or something like that. Like they've done that in the past as a way to incentivize people.
Yeah.
But other than that, like they just they have such a strong position of not needing to, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Riven asks, now that you've been independent for a couple of years, what do you find most stressful about your current jobs? Has that changed since you started?
The most stressful thing is all the stuff that I still don't really know how to do, like taxes and payroll. And we had to set up our 401ks this year.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how to do that. That sounds hard. But like things like that is pretty stressful. Like I just don't know how to do it, you know? It's just something that you don't think about because you were working with a big corporation and they did all that stuff for you, like health insurance. Like,
I'm surprised your answer was not daily check-ins on YouTube Analytics.
Oh, that's just my life now. I live and die daily by the YouTube Analytics, but it's okay. I've resigned to this life.
All right.
But yeah, other than that, I think you know, it's definitely like different in terms of like, you know, not to get too like deep into this, but like, you know, when you were working at like a corporate job, you just like get the same paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever.
Right.
Like, this is a little bit different. Like things fluctuate and whatnot, so you have to like plan your financial situation accordingly. You know. But other than that, it's been great.
For me, I wouldn't say it's something that's stressful, but it is very different. Where like there's just like a little, no matter what you're doing or like what time of year it is, like there's just a little bit of work that you have to do every day.
Oh yeah.
Like, so for example, like I went on a little trip last week, but I was still doing things for this, even though I was like, quote, on vacation.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bother me.
Right.
I imagine it could bother some people who like, I need to fully disconnect from this for some amount of time, but it's just kind of like the reality of like a 2-person company where, like you were saying, like there's some things that you're better at, there's some things that I'm better at, and or certain things that like we just know how to do at this point better than others. So like, you know, if you, at Nintendo, it's like, I'm going on vacation. I have somebody else who will step in and do all of that work. Now it's like, nobody's doing that.
No,
it's still me.
Just you.
So I don't mind that. I like that. Like, I like being involved in this.
Right, yeah.
But
we're also very good at helping each other when we need to. Like we try to take as much off the other person's plate as possible.
Right.
Like for example, for those bonus Q&As.
Oh yeah.
I was on vacation and then you did it by yourself.
Yes.
And then you went on vacation and I did it by myself.
Right.
Which was weird, sorry.
We got to flex those AM radio chops.
Oh. Felt kind
Traffic and weather coming next.
Look out for that jackknife big ring on the 405.
It's always the 405. What's wrong with the 405?
Don't stay off the 405.
Never
people.
get on the 405.
It's a mess.
It's always a mess. Yeah, that's true. It does not bother me either.
Yeah.
I always like. We always try to check in with each other to make sure, though. Because like if I'm going on vacation, it's like, okay, are you going to be okay, like doing these couple of things, or how can I help? You know, but it's true. Like, it's dramatic to say that you'll never truly ever take a vacation again, but that's kind of the reality of the situation.
Yeah. Switching it up, underscore got a spicy one.
Oh.
So recently, a new R4 card has been revealed for the Nintendo Switch. Apparently, you can put this card into the cartridge slot, load games onto an SD card, and play downloaded ROMs of Switch games. I remember back in the DS days, it was quite easy to pick up a very similar product where you could run hundreds of DS ROMs off of one of these cards. I was wondering, how was that time at Nintendo? Obviously, Nintendo frowned upon this, so what did they do to try and stop these cards and illegal ROM downloading? How do you think Nintendo will be responding behind the scenes to the news of potential R4 card for Nintendo Switch? I have attached a picture of the new card. Thanks for taking the time to answer my question. When I was at Bandai Namco, there were a lot of people I worked with who just had these. I never had one of these myself. Like this whole like emulation thing is too much work for me. And again, we have the weird like, it's like
Still scared.
it's like the Catholic guilt or whatever of like being associated. It's like I just can't.
The time travel.
Right.
No.
I will not time travel in Animal Crossing either.
I can't.
Right. But yeah, these seem to be rather ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was at Nintendo at the time where they were kind of at their peak. I think that would have been more you. But Nintendo has a gigantic anti-piracy operation that I'm sure is all over this.
They're all over this. They're 100% looking at like that, the end-all solution, which is some sort of hardware update where...
I mean, that's the difference. Like on the DS, you cannot just push updates.
Exactly. I was just going to say,
endlessly. And I'm
System
sure...
update, here we come.
And I imagine there's some people, if they're dedicated enough to this, they're just like, well, I'm just not going to update my system ever again.
Just like the duping.
But you will deter some people by doing that.
Yeah, I think that they are pretty extreme too. Like they might have some sort of update that like if you use this card, it bricks your system.
Yeah.
Like they can be really extreme.
Yeah, and they'll find who's doing this, but it is one of those things where once you're past this point, it's hard to go back.
It is, yeah.
It is very late in the generation, so I think there's probably some amount of relief that this didn't happen sooner.
Right.
Because a lot of generations have been cut short. Like PSP was just like rife with piracy.
Yeah.
And also DS at that
DS
point
was
too.
Pretty bad.
So it's an ongoing struggle for them, but again, they are very equipped and ready to deal with this at all times.
Yeah.
Whether you can fully eradicate it, probably not, but they will certainly.
They might like make an example of someone. That's, that's what they love to do, where they like catch, somebody that's doing this. It becomes like a big, and they'll like manufacture news around it. Like they'll make this a big deal.
We got this guy.
We got this guy. We're punishing, this person. This is the actual ninjas. This is what they're actually doing. They're not coming after the leakers that much. They're coming after the piracy people.
Right.
So I wouldn't want to mess with that. I'm a little scared of Nintendo when it comes to this kind of stuff, but
they mean business.
They do mean business. Yeah, they are not messing around.
The Keggers is next. Hey K&K, the Game Awards Twitter account posted an interesting question today, so I thought I would ask you guys and see what you think. Which video game character deserves a comeback in 2024? My personal answer was Fox McCloud from Star Fox. We are long overdue for a new game in that series.
That's a good one. I miss Fox. He can be something. What game character?
I mean, the answer has to be Mega Man. It just has. It just has to be.
Oh, poor Mega Man.
It has to be Mega Man.
Where is he? He's gone.
I don't know. I mean, it's not the concept of Mega Man. Could still work today.
Yeah.
There have been 3D Mega Man games. Those were cool.
Yeah.
You could still make those 2D games. Yeah. Those would be cool. Make something.
Do a
try. Please try.
Capcom.
Try something.
Try.
And there still is there's still somehow is still a pretty big fan base for Mega Man. It probably wouldn't be like a record-breaking game.
Sure.
But as far as like the Capcom portfolio. And they still put Mega Man out there as like a mascot. Like,
yeah, it's like
there's no reason
in all of their like
there's
marketing
no
stuff.
reason this shouldn't work.
I wanted to think of a character that's like really out there, but the only one I can think of is Donkey Kong.
Oh.
Because I do think Donkey Kong needs. Like we were talking about this too. Like Donkey
Kong
needs
games,
needs like a resurgence.
Right.
We need some games. We just need Donkey Kong to be more present because Donkey Kong was so like present in the movie and it's obviously going to be very present in the theme park. Where's the next like Donkey Kong?
Come on.
Where is it? Also tied with Samus. We saw little Samus last year.
It's not been that long since we had Samus.
With a remake, but we need we need to know what Samus is up to nowadays.
Don't compare Samus with Mega Man, okay? This is very different situations.
I like Samus.
Feel my pain. VGM Life is last with our last question. Hi, Kit and Krista. One game that did not come up during your 2024 predictions is Dragon Quest XII.
Oh, yeah.
The game was announced in May 2021, and this is now the longest we've gone between Dragon Quest releases, as Dragon Quest XI came out in July 2017. Do you think there's any chance the game releases this year, perhaps on both Switch and Switch 2?
Could happen. I did see some recent stuff with Yuji Horii.
Yeah.
Lately, he's like out and about doing some things, so we could be getting close on a Dragon Quest announcement. I love to see it. I love Dragon Quest. I think that would be great if this was a part of the launch lineup for Switch 2. That would be a huge, a huge win for them, So yeah.
I think last year I had a prediction about this being in some Nintendo Direct because it has been a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah.
And I like the idea here that it's a Switch and Switch 2 game.
Yeah.
Because that's always what they're trying to do. Is like, let's get this on the biggest platform. And they jump around platforms historically.
Right.
So Switch and Switch 2 would be a good idea to just get it in front of a lot of people. And then maybe after that, it releases on everything else. Or maybe they just go fully multi-platform, and maybe they're waiting for the Switch 2 to come out. So
they can do the all
the
three.
The power adds up everywhere. But remember we did that video before the TGAs about if GTA 6 forced Nintendo's hand to reveal the Switch 2 because that was a game that was on it.
Right.
The reason we even considered saying that is because that happened with the last Dragon Quest game.
That's right. Exactly.
This was like one of the first, or maybe the first game that was confirmed for the NX console.
NX console,
right?
Yeah.
Before anything was actually happening.
Yeah.
And it's an example of Nintendo breaking some of its rules. If there's a really, really, really big and important game for them, they will let that happens sometimes.
This is what we're talking about, like that licensing, the PDR team, they're working hard on these deals.
Yes.
And that is the power that a prestigious developer or title can have to change even your own announcement plans.
Get them to sign on the dotted line, win the steak knives, win the Cadillac. Yes. Salesman's dream.
Yes.
Here we go.
Look, this knife cuts through this tin can like it's butter. Okay. Wow. That is sort of the end.
It's a packed episode, my gosh.
Of our 100th episode.
Wow.
How do you feel?
I feel great.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to pee.
All right. I guess the writing's on the wall.
So we need to wrap this up, but before we can do that, we will love to shout out our wonderful superstars.
Let's
Here
do
we
just that.
go. Aaron Hash.
Ben Eichhorn.
Mara Mayhem.
Eigenverse.
Kiss My Flapjack.
Mike Chin.
Roy Eschke.
Switching it up. _
Safizan!
PGM Life.
Link, the hero of Winds.
Angela Bycroft and her Pig Molly.
Thomas O'Rourke.
Kyle LaBeouf.
Roberto Nieves.
Frederick Ulf Conradson.
Andrew Uhas.
Chili.
And Bruce Dash.
Happy
Woohoo!
100 episodes to
To
Molly.
Molly.
I really had to wind up for that underscore too.
Molly is going to be with us for hundreds of more episodes.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Molly is our biggest supporter. All right, here we go with our one-up club. A. Rom Burgundy.
Ale Alejandro.
Astro Dev.
Awesome 46.
Bad Moon Horizon.
Benji B.
Book of Dano.
Bookishly Fab.
Brad SF56.
Brooke Obscura.
Brovak Novak.
Cameron.
Shelly Squirrel.
Christopher Lay.
Captain Alex.
Crimcap.
C. Roper 17.
Cynical Squid.
Dachshund.
Doinko.
Elite Peach.
Espars 50.
Fart Priest 69.
Fairbound.
Fernie and Just Forever.
Fox Deploy.
Garrett Hallfish.
Garth the Wolf.
Gartooth.
G-Sun 101.
Heroic.
Iris Marin.
Jay Rando.
Jabroni Jones.
Jeffrey Hernandez.
Jeremy Lewis.
Jerry 92602.
Jesse Hernandez.
John Responte.
Jonathan Rowe.
Jordan Collette.
Jordan Hemmerly.
Joshua Clements.
Juji Fruit.
Justin Lemminger.
Kawa 2796.
Keith Kwan.
Kevin Delane.
Kilo Kibo.
Christorati Kid.
Christopia Party With Me.
Kyle Gamer Barry Rookie.
Kyle Kretzer.
Linnell Stickman.
Lazy for Coffee.
No.
Yes.
Lazy what for coffee?
Oh, Lazy Cat for Coffee.
Cannot forget that. Lex.
Lit.
Matcha Potato.
Mad Dog 5981.
Magnificent Easy G plus Callie Marie.
Marky Man 64.
Mario Man 392.
Mecha Dragon 101.
Medallion.
Megan.
Michael Craven.
Mikey.
Mr. Ryan 07.
Motomania.
Mr. Andy Pong.
Mr. Beans and Dip.
MSM Poke Gamer.
My Tran.
Nasir.
Nathan Burkhart.
Nick.
Ninja 11.
Panda Buns.
Hanky.
Paul C. Pace.
Polio Network.
Prime Factor.
Prince Charmless.
Reaver.
Rain Tech.
Ryoth 1.
Rob Osborne.
Rocks.
Ryanetta.
Sharif Jackson.
Shinryu.
Slowbro.
Schnozzle.
Spicy Munchkin.
Steel Citrone.
Tales of Link.
Tay 120 and 64.
Tech Magic.
The Shark Among Men.
Thomas Alvarez.
3 Rivers.
Timmy V.
Topher Schmofer.
Totally Joe Ed.
Travis Torline.
Trajawi.
Tugs Puppy Bear.
Tuscoot.
Tyler Geis.
Fest.
Video Game Stupid.
Viridia.
Virtual Bot.
Weeb Kingdom.
WG Grizzy.
What of Khalil?
Wicked Davy.
Zudiver.
Zelgaroth.
Zapati.
And Zroid. Oh, I got Zroid. Okay. Please. Please. Join us, please, at patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. Help us get to 200 episodes.
If you're watching this on video, you can go ahead and subscribe to the Kit and Krysta YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up and leave us a comment if you'd like. And if you're listening on audio, you can also subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and a written review if you please.
And we're on the socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Threads. That's it.
On to 101.
With 101 next week.
Yes.
See you guys later.
Bye.